to honor name upon name of those who have been killed by Renee Good, Alex Preddy, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, and others. 30-year-old Montessori school teacher Miramar Martinez, who survived 7 gunshot wounds. 7 gunshot wounds. Those bullets were fired at her for absolutely no reason. In his opening remarks, Senator Blumenthal said this.
Ms. Martinez, these are images of texts sent by the agent who shot you. And they're actually disturbing to read, but I think it's important for the public to see this. The agent linked an article about your shooting and texted, read it. 5 shots, 7 holes. I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys. Oh, well, it is what it is. Happens.
Miramar Martinez, an American citizen born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, where one of Donald Trump's ICE agents tried to murder her. Agent Charles Exum celebrated his attempted murder of Miramar Martinez in texts.
I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Now, he was talking about you, and it's our understanding that he was actually bragging about his aim shooting an unarmed American citizen. Is that right?
Correct. My own government attempted to execute me, and when they fell, they chose to vilify me. I am Renee Good. I am Alex Preddy. I am Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. I am Keith Porter. They should all be here today. I know each of them would trade my bullet wounds a lifetime of mental distress and a heartbeat to be able to be back with their loved ones this afternoon.
Any one of us at any time. What you are about to hear are stories of life in Donald Trump's America, and you will hear stories about death in Donald Trump's America when you hear the testimony today from Renee Good's brothers, who talked about the light she brought into this world before she was murdered by ICE agent Jonathan Ross, who was put on that street by Donald Trump. If on a Saturday morning you are on your way to church to donate some clothes, as Miramar Martinez was, this is what can happen to you now.
The Border Patrol vehicle stopped just 1 to 2 car lengths ahead of me. It seemed like time stopped. I knew from watching the news coverage of other Border Patrol encounters in Chicago that I was in danger. I watched the vehicle of Border Patrol agent killing Silverio Villegas Gonzalez just 3 weeks prior. I knew I had to get to safety before I was dragged from my car and likely beaten or killed. I drove forward and went around the Border Patrol agents, who jumped out of his car and pointed his gun at me. I moved to the far left lane, striking the curb on the far left side of Kedzie. The next thing I knew, I felt a burning sensation in my arms, legs, and that I had been shot by pepper balls, which I also seen these agents fire at people in our community. As I continued to drive past the Border Patrol agents, I could hear my back passenger window shatter, and I felt bullets continue to pierce my body. As I attempted to drive to a safe location, I began to feel lightheaded. I looked down and I noticed blood gushing out of my arms and legs, and I realized I'd been shot multiple times. As I became lightheaded, I became worried I would pass out and endanger other drivers on the road. I managed to drive a mile from where the incident happened, and I pulled into a parking lot of a mechanic shop, and I called 911. I told the 911 operator that Border Patrol agents had just shot me and I needed help. I recall some of the workers from the shop sitting me down in a chair as I was waiting for help, but I was losing this battle. I saw my life flash before me and slowly began to think this was the end for me. And before losing consciousness, the next thing I remember is the EMT putting me on a stretcher, taking me to the hospital. At the hospital, I remember seeing multiple agents standing around watching me be treated for my wounds. My arms, legs, and chest were all wrapped in bandages. I had 7 bullet holes in my body. I remember the agents rushing the nurses to finish up so they could take me with them. I still felt dizzy. I was not able to fully process what had happened to me. After being at the hospital for less than 3 hours, I was discharged from the hospital and took custody of the FBI.
That could be you. That could be your sister. That could be your mother. That could be anyone now. And that agent is very proud that his bullets did that kind of damage. She was still bleeding after those 3 hours in the emergency room, and Donald Trump's agents dragged her out of that hospital and put her in jail that Saturday night to spend the weekend in jail. When Donald Trump's agents try to kill you, they really try to kill you. And if they don't kill you on the street, they will try to kill you by dragging you out of the hospital if they can. And that is not a mistake. Dragging a wounded young woman out of the hospital, that is a willful attempt to kill her. But Miramar Martinez is a miracle, because Miramar Martinez just wouldn't die.
The news in the jail that evening had my story and was being called a domestic terrorist. They said I quote unquote rammed federal agents. I was in shock. If they only knew I was a month away from paying off my truck and I will never intentionally damage my vehicle, much less be crazy enough to hit a law enforcement. On Friday, I was teaching the young children at the Montessori School, and we were singing and dancing and getting ready for spooky season, preparing fall activities to do the following week. And on Saturday, my own government was calling me a domestic terrorist. And I was in federal detention centers with the bullet holes all over my body.
And then in court on the next Monday morning, Donald Trump's prosecutors wanted to keep Miramar Martinez in jail awaiting trial, in jail indefinitely. The judge saw a courtroom full of parents from the school where she's a teacher and her family there supporting her, and the judge listened to the evidence, and he immediately released her. And then Agent Charles Exum drove the car that he jumped out of that day from Chicago to Maine. That's right, he willfully removed the important evidence in the case, the vehicle which he claims Miramar Martinez tried to ram, and he drove that car across the country to get it out of the case. There must have been absolutely no damage on that car. There must have been no evidence on that car that could possibly have helped their case. And then Donald Trump's federal prosecutors just dropped the charges against Miramar Martinez and thereby proved that they were lying, that she never tried to ram their car, because they never would have dropped the charges for that. They proved by dropping those charges there was absolutely no reason to fire a single shot at her. The 30-year-old Montessori school teacher, who Donald Trump's liars called a domestic terrorist, was never charged with a crime. They tried to murder her, but never charged her with a crime. Who are the domestic terrorists in that story? None of the victims. The next victim, another American citizen, was from Minneapolis.
My name is Aliyah Rahman, and I am a resident of South Minneapolis. I'm a Bangladeshi American, born in northern Wisconsin, and I'm a disabled person with autism and a traumatic brain injury. Not all autistic brains do this, but mine fixates on sounds, numbers, and patterns. On January 13th, on the way to my 39th appointment at Hennepin County's Traumatic Brain Injury Center, I encountered a traffic jam caused by ICE vehicles and no signs indicating how to get around it. I had not wanted to pull into a blocked, chaotic intersection, but verbally agreed to do so and rolled down my window after an agent yelled, "Move! I will break your effing window!" His first instruction. Agents on all sides of my vehicle yelled conflicting threats and instructions that I could not process while watching for pedestrians. Then the glass of the passenger side window flew across my face. I yelled, "I'm disabled," at the hands grabbing at me, and an agent said, "Too late." I felt immersed in a pattern, and I thought of Genoa Donald, an autistic black man killed by police during a traffic stop in 2021. I remembered Mr. Silverio Gonzalez, who was killed by ICE in his vehicle last year. An agent pulled a large combat knife in front of my face, which I thought was for cutting me, and later learned was used to cut off my seatbelt. Shooting pain went through my head, neck, and wrists when I hit the ground face first and people leaned on my back. I felt the pattern, and I thought of Mr. George Floyd, who was killed 4 blocks away. I was carried face down through the street by my cuffed arms and legs while yelling that I had a brain injury and was disabled. I now cannot lift my arms normally. I was never asked for ID, never told I was under arrest, never read my rights, and never charged with a crime. I received no medical screening, phone call, or access to a lawyer. I was denied a communication navigator when my speech began to slur. Agents laughed as I tried to immobilize my own neck. I asked for my cane and was told no, pulled up my arms and prodded forward in leg irons by agents laughing and saying, "Walk, you can do it, walk." Agents did not know if the facility had a wheelchair. When I was finally placed in one to be taken to interrogation, an agent taunted, "You were driving, right? So your legs do work." I pleaded for emergency medical care for over an hour after my vision had become blurry, my heart rate went through the roof, and the pain in my neck and head became unbearable. It was denied. When I became unable to speak, my cellmate pleaded for me. The last sounds I remember before I blacked out on the cell floor were my cellmate banging on the door, pleading for a medic, and a voice outside saying, "We don't want to step on ICE's toes. We call ourselves a civilized nation, but we lack rules and accountability around what a person claiming to be law enforcement is permitted to do to another human being." I am not afraid, and I'm not afraid to keep working on this problem even after ICE is gone. Thank you for your time.
That could happen to you. That could happen to your mother, your sister, your grandmother, your cousin. It could happen to anyone now. The third victim of Donald Trump's invasion forced to testify at today's hearing was Daniel Rascon. No Republican showed up to hear a word he or any of the other witnesses said about the crimes committed. Daniel Rascon is 23 years old. He's the father of a 3-week-old baby girl. He's a forklift operator who just got his dental assistant certification. And this is his story.
The morning of August 16th, 2025 would quickly become unforgettable, especially because my future father-in-law, Francisco Longoria, wanted me to run an errand with him and his son, Jonathan, when all I really wanted to do was just sleep in. We took Jonathan's truck with him sitting in the passenger seat, Francisco driving, and me sitting behind Francisco, when we were just 2 minutes away from home. At 8:49 a.m., 2 unmarked trucks suddenly boxed in our car. I had been looking down at my phone, but when our car abruptly stopped, I looked up thinking we must be at a red light or in a traffic jam. But to my surprise, I was instead met with four men in face masks, sunglasses, and baseball caps, and guns drawn, pointing straight at us, walking towards our car. These four men then tried forcing their way into our car by pulling on the handles, pounding on the windows, and yelling at us to roll down the windows, all while failing to answer our repeated requests for their identification and what they wanted. I did not know who these men were. They were refusing to identify themselves, and the only thing I felt I could do, I could control, was capturing this event by recording it on my cell phone. There were two men on either side of the car, and they were not wearing any uniform. I could not tell who these men surrounding our car with guns were. We again asked them to show identification and why they were approaching us with so much aggression. Only seconds after they started pounding on the windows, one of the men broke the driver's side window, punched Francisco in the face, and began reaching into the car. At the same time, a man on the other side of the car broke the passenger window where Jonathan was sitting and began reaching into the vehicle. They shattered the windows, and in that moment, the whole world felt like it was the size of the inside of our pickup. And we were sitting in harm's way with nothing to do but record the horrifying experience. Terrified for our lives, Francisco bravely drove straight through the only open pathway down the street, hoping to be driving towards safety, when we were instead met with gunfire. After we had passed the men, one of the four men attempted to murder us after we passed by, as he fired and made contact with the passenger side of our car multiple times. I will never forget the fear and having to quickly duck my head as the shots were fired at the car. Any one of those bullets could have killed me or two people that I love. We narrowly escaped as pieces of glass fell on our heads as we drove down the bumpy road. 3 minutes changed our lives forever. We then called 911 to report that four men who were hiding their identity assaulted and shot at us. By 9 a.m., a police helicopter was flying over our property. Next thing we know, local officers showed up at our home, handcuffed Francisco, put him in the officer's car, and began individually questioning us. The officers then allowed the same four men who had just attacked us to come to our home. Those four men were asked to identify who they were looking for, but they had zero idea as to who they were even targeting.
Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury said this.
This should not happen to anyone in America. It should not be happening to U.S. citizens. It should not be happening to immigrants. It should not be happening to anyone in America. I don't care who you are or what your identity is or how your status is under the law in this country. This should not be happening in the United States, and there are systems in place to provide a check and balance to make sure that this does not happen to people in our country. And so to hear your stories and to hear the violence that is being committed in our communities against our people, and then to see White House officials, the President of the United States, disparaging entire communities, going after members of Congress, the Vice President telling the American people that these individuals have total immunity, to see Kristi Noem go on national television and lie about you, to lie about you, that they're tampering with evidence, and then to see that the actual agents committing these crimes, because I want to be clear, these are crimes. This is not in the line of duty. You don't shoot, murder, and harm people in the line of duty. That is a crime.